Let's get into this game from last night. A
Yep.
late one. If you stayed up,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't fun.
Did you stay up, Eric?
I did.
Eric kind of has to because he has to wait for my recap
Yeah, then I
to
have
show
to
up.
twiddle my thumbs for a while.
Lucky for you, though, to tell you how this game went, I had it pretty much 80% done by the time the final whistle blew.
Yeah, there wasn't much that changed in the second half. So the first 10 minutes, it's back and forth. Utah State,
even leaning toward
had
Utah
a stretch
State.
where Aggies were doing okay, playing from ahead, but then they just stagnated, and San Diego State starts hitting outside shots. A guy that doesn't normally hit a ton of threes hits a ton of threes. You get guys in foul trouble, and the offense was just stagnant for Utah State. They tried to make a push. In the second half, after getting down big, they tried to get back a little bit, but they just couldn't sustain it. And so just a rough night for Utah State. You could tell this was a really big game for San Diego State, something that we worried about last night. This was a team that was desperate. They were playing to still have some outside shot of making the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. You can't lose 3 games in a row at the end of near the end of the regular season and still hope to get in. Utah State's now going to face that same fate with the game coming up on Saturday where they've lost 2 in a row. But Utah State's in a better position than San Diego was. But just a real sluggish game for the Utah State offense. Eventually they get 72 points. Eventually they get other guys who score. But it was a slog for a really big chunk of the game. And San Diego State punched the Aggies in the mouth, and they didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and here's the thing for me that it comes down to, at least defensively for the Aggies, because this was, at least by point total, their worst game of the season defensively. And I don't know if it was their worst in terms of like points allowed per possession, but it was, if it wasn't, then it was pretty dang close because they allowed 1.3 points per possession. San Diego State scored 89 points in 67 possessions. The thing that was a huge difference for San Diego State in this one, and I was looking up numbers before the game, thinking about how the Aggies need to try and control this game, and part of it came down to being able to control the paint and limit San Diego State with their finishing in the paint, being able to score at the paint, especially at the rim. And something that I noticed over their last 3 games is that in the 3 games leading up to playing Utah State, they had shot 45.5% at the rim. So layups and dunks, which is actually pretty bad.
Yeah, that's not great. You're in the paint. You should have a higher percentage.
Yeah, good teams, at the rim are going to shoot 60+%. Maybe slightly under it. So shooting 45, like under 50%, that's terrible. Because again, this is the closest shot you can get, and you're shooting, less than a coin flip's chance. Mm-hmm. And you go back to Utah State when they played the Aggies. San Diego State shot 10 of 22, which is conveniently also 45.5%. So San Diego State recently, and in the previous game against the Aggies, had shot poorly at the rim, had not gotten a ton of points in the paint. They did get some points in the paint. Again, they hit 10 shots at the rim against the Aggies in the first game. But that was not a place where they could live on offense. The Aggies did a really good job at preventing them from getting effective shots inside. San Diego State scored their first 19 points of the game, all in the paint. 9 field goal attempts and 1 free throw that came off of a fast break where the foul happened in the paint. And then after hitting all those shots inside, didn't even need to. They did attempt some shots outside, but didn't hit them. But they went up. What was it, 19-13, I think was the score when they got their before they hit a three-pointer. So let's see. This was 19-17 actually. The Aggies were actually still leading up until they got to 19-17. Pharaoh Compton hits a layup. And then finally, they get some outside shooting. Reese Dixon Waters hits a three-pointer. Next possession, he hits another one. And, they hit a few more three-pointers. They didn't hit a ton of three-pointers, but they hit some of them. The thing is that San Diego State worked from the inside out. They dominated the paint, got every shot they wanted in the paint. And then when Utah State had to try and adjust a little bit, they then worked to the outside, and they didn't rush any of those 3-point shooters. You give it to a guy, Dixon Waters, who shoots 35% from three. So perfectly capable of shooting wide open corner 3-pointers. BJ Davis, another solid 3-point shooter. And then Magoon Gwathi gets that, lucky 3-pointer at the end. But like, hey, if you're shooting well, that's the kind of stuff it's going to happen. You're going to get lucky when you create good shots for yourself.
Keep chucking it up. They're playing with momentum. They got a lot of verve.
Yeah.
Borrow a term from Coach Calhoun, the other Calhoun. They had momentum. They had energy. They had juice. Like, they were making plays. And they had Utah State, as Coach Calhoun said, they were discombobulated.
Yeah, discombobulated. Yeah, and that
was a perfect term, because sometimes you're watching the ball through the air and not getting on their guy, sticking a guy, boxing out, just losing a guy.
Yeah, like one play that just continues to stick in my mind was, Farrah Compton going from, I think it was dang near the 3-point line, running all the way up for a putback dunk. And like, who's going to put a body on him? Doesn't have to be the biggest guy on the court. I think they mentioned it was Elijah Perryman might have been the closest guy. Perryman doesn't have to overwhelm a 6'8", 7'2" wingspan guy. If he's running from the perimeter, just put a body on him, and he's probably not going to get to the rebound.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a couple times guys had clear paths right down the lane. They didn't have to do a Euro step or anything. Just go right to the rim. And there were, 5 assists in the first half? It felt like Utah State started to get down a little bit, and then everybody felt like, oh, I have to make the big shot to get us back. And so there was a lot of one-on-one stuff, a lot of, I'm going to jack up a 3, whether it's a good look or not, to get us right back into this. And then it didn't feel like Utah State was really running its offense. There was a lot of, I don't want to call it hero ball that was going on, but to some degree it kind of was. But also there was some offense, like sets that were happening, but guys just weren't making their shots. So you can't get an assist if no one makes a shot.
Yeah.
And so Utah State just really struggled with their open looks. And too many times, Utah State guards, forwards, whomever, it was endemic. Like, everybody had this problem. They would start rolling through the offense, and they'd pick up their dribble. And then they'd stand there, like, kind of surveying the field to see where they should go next. And that's like blood in the water for sharks. And the Aztecs would just swarm on that. And you can't pick up your dribble if you don't know where you're going to go after stopping your dribble. And way too often, Aggie players would pick up their dribble and they'd be swarmed. And then they were like in this tight situation that it was hard to get out of.
Yeah, you need to be able to be confident on the ball and know where you're going. Some of that just comes with having a flow on offense. But San Diego State, they specialize in getting you out of that flow.
Yeah.
They pressure every single pass. And when every single pass is pressured, you don't feel comfortable unless you are confident on the ball, where you're able to dribble through that pressure, you're able to pass through that pressure, pass around the guy, the guy with the long wingspan who's throwing out his hand to try and prevent you from making that pass. Still make it confidently, have it be a sharp pass. And Utah State has struggled to do that now in 2 games against the Aztecs, where they're just bothered by it. It doesn't always necessarily have to be resulting in a ton of turnovers, because that's what happened in the first game, is they just turned the ball over a ton. But here, even where the Aggies only had 12 turnovers, where that's not a bad, that's roughly average. That's pretty well within, a typical game for the Aggies, or really anybody in terms of turnovers. They were still significantly bothered by that length and by the ball pressure. And Utah State has to be able to overcome that. It's not even necessarily about physicality. It's just about the kind of the pressure that, you become susceptible to when you're not confident in your passes and in your dribbling and in the ball movement. You need to be able to fight through that. And that's something that Utah State didn't do. And it ended with them just jacking a bunch of 3-pointers in the first half. They didn't feel confident going into the paint, even though San Diego State only had 3 blocked shots. They didn't block nearly as many shots as they thought they would. And I didn't think that they would, like, in terms of when the Aggies went to the rim, I didn't think it was as bad as I thought it was, because the Aggies actually shot 12 of 17 at the rim. That's solid. But the problem is, you look at the first half, they took 17 3-pointers and 4 layups. They made every single layup or dunk they attempted in the first half. They went 4 of 4. Not a single block, not a single miss. But if you only attempt 4,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the two.
Sometimes
yeah.
sometimes you have to manufacture runs,
Yeah,
right? You have to just get a guy on base and then advance him. I know that's not where the analytics normally try to say things or should be going in baseball, but sometimes you have to just find ways to get points on the board and keep yourself in the game.
Well,
and it felt like Utah State too often was, as the guys on the TV broadcast called it, umbrella offense. Everything was up on top trying to just shoot threes. No one was trying to attack the rim or doing the proper cutting and screening down low. So things just your percentage rates of hitting against that kind of a defense, just relying on outside shots, it's not going to help you get back into the game.
Yeah, it's not. And like you talk about analytics, layups are the golden shot. If you're talking about analytics and points per shot, every offense wants a layup. And if you only attempt 4 of them, you've screwed up somewhere. You have not succeeded if you attempt 4 layups in 20 minutes. You need to take more of those. And if if it takes missing a couple to just be more aggressive, I would rather you go 8 of 13 than only 4 of 4. I know that's, 5 extra missed shots, but that's a few extra points. It's more aggression. You probably got to the foul line a little bit more.
Right.
The Aggie and San Diego State committed 21 fouls in this game. Like, they were fouling the Aggies too.
Put pressure on them.
Yeah, put pressure on them. It's what the Aggies did in the first game is they got a bunch of their guys in foul trouble, gave them fits at times, and Utah State just didn't do any of that in this game. They got a lot better in the second half. I mean, they attempted 17 shots at the rim in the game, 4 in the first half. Do the math. They attempted a lot more in the second half. But I mean, in the second half, it was pretty much over at that point. It didn't matter the decent stuff they did on offense in the second half, where they shot 45% from the field. That was okay. They made 4 3-pointers. And yeah, they got to the rim a lot more. But it was too late. And then the defense was just never on point. Like, really, at no stage in this game was the defense on point. Like, outside of where San Diego State missed 3 3-pointers to start the game. But the third of those 3-pointers, there was a putback layup after it. So,
yeah, if you were to tell me before the game that Utah State would get 12 points from Adlin Elamine and 7 points from Tucker Anderson, I'd think, okay, Aggies are probably going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and you get 18 points from MJ Collins and 14 from Mason Falslev.
Yeah.
You're happy with most everything there.
I think the Aggies are going to be in okay shape, but they're getting that kind of an offensive contribution from those guys. They'll probably get some from a few other guys as well. They should be okay. But it wasn't the case. Just a tough night for Utah State. Now, we'll get into what happened last night in the other games and what happened the night before and how that affects kind of the end of season here. But the concern I have is that Utah State struggled with some things that Nevada did. We know Utah State struggled against Grand Canyon. We know Utah State struggled against UNLV. We know Utah State just struggled last night against San Diego State. Their rosters have a lot of similarities in how they play. Utah State still has to play Grand Canyon. Now, New Mexico is different, but they have to play UNLV again. So the type of roster, the way that it's constructed and the way that they run their stuff that gives Utah State trouble, there's still 2 more of those games to come for Utah State. And they've struggled these last 2. That last night was frustrating, and it's never fun to watch the team that you've tried to follow lose by the margin that they lost. But I'm more upset and troubled by what happened in Reno than what I saw happen last night in San Diego. Which, you know what, it was a closer game. They competed and they almost got it. And last night, they just got blown out. They just didn't look like they were in the game. There are aspects of that true, but what's frustrating is that in stretches of that Nevada game, one of a dozen different things goes better for Utah State, and they win that game. Last night, you needed a lot of things to go better, and go better in a really big way. Whereas in Nevada, just one little thing goes better for Utah State. One minor focus to detail gets you that win. Last night, they were out of that game for a long time.
Yeah. We need to take a break, and I want to get to this, talk a little bit more about what's concerning, what maybe isn't concerning, the things that Aggie fans should or shouldn't be worried about, at least in my opinion. But I want to bring up one more thing that is concerning, and it stems from the last couple of games. And that's offensive rebounds, Utah State giving up offensive rebounds. They gave up double-digit rebounds when Nevada shot 50+% from the field. San Diego State shot 54% from the field, and they got 12 offensive rebounds. When San Diego State missed a shot or a free throw and there was an opportunity for a defensive rebound, 40% of the time they were getting it. There were 30 opportunities for a rebound for Utah State to grab a defensive rebound, and they only got it a little more than half the time. That cannot happen, and it's continually happening, and it's something that needs to stop being a trend.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Which is part of my point we'll get into next, is we're going to take a break, is, again, nothing that's happening in a single game for the Aggies against Nevada, against San Diego State, should in and of itself be concerning. But when trends start forming, those are the things to be concerned about, and those are the things that the Aggies need to be able to reverse.